Welcome to this edition of Water Drops. We're going to be walking through how you can export a model from InfoWater Pro to InfoWorks WS Pro. My name is Hunter Sparks and I'm a solutions engineer on the Autodesk Water team. So who is this for? Really, broadly, it's anyone looking to go from an EPANET software to InfoWorks WS Pro. In the process that we showed today, we're going to be leveraging XINPs, but this works the same for multiple INPs. So if you are leveraging a software that has an EPANET engine, you can follow the same process once you get it to an INP format of bringing it into InfoWorks WS Pro. Some examples: modelers who are leveraging InfoWater or InfoWater Pro and WS Pro together and want to pass their model from one to the other. Organizations looking to move their model from an InfoWater or InfoWater Pro version to WS Pro, or consultants who have previously used InfoWater Pro, but maybe the municipality that they're working with has moved to WS Pro and they want to bring their model with them. These are just a couple examples of where this workflow could be leveraged. So the workflow that we're going to look at, we're going to start in InfoWater Pro. We're going to export the scenarios to XINP. In this example, since we're going to leverage facilities, we'll have to switch between the two, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get in the software. We're going to create the model group in WS Pro. We're going to import those XINPs. We're going to run the model. We will use some of those tools in WS Pro to make sure we have a model that runs. Then we're going to review the results. So we'll go ahead and hop into the software. So now we're going to show the workflow in InfoWater Pro and bring it into WS Pro. So we're starting in InfoWater Pro. So really the ones that we're going to want to bring in is the current and the future development. Because the current and future development use different facilities in order to export the correct model, you're going to need to export those separately. So I'm going to go ahead and go to apps. We'll start with the current development. If I go to apps, IW Live, we're going to start with these currents. And then if we come to here, this is where we're going to save it, and we will call this the Davis current export. We'll go ahead and save that. And now our export is complete for the current. Now you need to make sure if you're using different facilities now that I switch over to the futures, because it needs to include these and it needs to actually switch the map and turn them on. So now we're going to follow the exact same process. Come up to the app, IW Live. We'll do the future, but here we'll call this Davis future export. Save. Export. And now once that's done, I'll press close. And what you can do now is if you come to the folder where you saved it, now we have the current and the future scenarios. What you can do is you can actually pull these forward into the current, and we'll go ahead and paste that and go ahead and save that. And then in WS Pro, we are going to go ahead and bring this in. So now we've moved over to InfoWorks WS Pro, and we can go ahead and bring those scenarios from InfoWater Pro. So we're going to go ahead, create a new model group. And a model group you can think of as a project. It's where you can store your models, your controls, etc. So we will call this from InfoWater Pro. Press OK. And as we can see here, this is where we can create new networks, controls, live data configurations, and other items. And that's where it's kind of that project level, holding everything together. But what we're going to do this time is we're going to import that .xinp, and we are going to go to our folder where we are working in, and we're going to go to the current export, because remember, this is where we brought everything to that one folder, so this should bring in all scenarios for us. So we're just going to call this model from IWP and use it the same name across each item. And now we can see what information and what was brought over with that import. We'll go ahead and just press close. Now, if we come under here, we can see we have our network, our controls, our different demands, and some other items. I'm going to go ahead and associate my controls so that each time that I open up my model or leverage the model, those controls will be tied to it. So if I go ahead and open this up, we'll see for the base, if I go to the current, then I switch over to the future, it adds in that area. So the facilities followed through because we took that extra step of turning off and on the scenarios. So if I come up to manage scenarios and I look at the network, you can see that everything is stored in the base scenario, and then each of these scenarios that were set up, there are less objects. And that's because all it is going to do is it is going to show the objects that changed from that base scenario. So it's a really efficient way to store all that information, store that data in the scenario management. So in here, if you wanted to, you could choose two different ones, look at the difference, you could duplicate and make some other changes. So now that we have run through, we can go ahead and switch back to the base. The next thing we might want to do is run our model, but before you run a model, it is always good to validate. The good part about WS Pro, they have a couple different ways you can validate. It has inline validation as well as this validate tool. And we're going to go ahead and validate the base scenario. So if we press OK, when we come down here, it's giving us some errors, and we have some yellow warnings. Warnings are just informational. They're not going to cause it to not run, but the warnings will actually prevent it from running. So as we can see, we have some duty flow issues, some valve too small issues. This is because we had some specific pumps within InfoWater Pro that weren't really contributing, weren't really adding any flow. So maybe we want to change that in WS Pro and leverage those pumps. This is another good item about InfoWorks WS Pro is you can leverage your SQL queries and themes. And because of the workgroup database, you can actually leverage queries and themes from other model groups. So I just went ahead and fixed the pumps. But one thing I want to show, if I double click on this error, it's going to take me to where that item is in the grid view. But also we can see that if we were to have selected this pump or pump station, it's going to give us those error issues highlighted in red. So that's where that inline validation comes in. So there are a couple checks and steps within InfoWorks WS Pro, but I'm going to go ahead revalidate mainly because I want it to select all of those pumps again, and this is where I can leverage my SQL query. So I've dragged that over, it's run through, it should have made those updates, and now when I go back to validate and press OK, now we can see that we are only left with those warnings. So now we are ready to run our model. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new run just by simply doing new and then run. We will call this model run. Keep it with normal if I drag over the network. Oh, one step that I forgot before we run so that it will take into account those changes that we made. We need to go ahead and commit changes to database. We're going to choose all of our scenarios. This is a way that you're saving it back. You're committing changes while you're working. You're not saving it back as the main model. So once we commit those changes, and as we can see, the 24 objects and 5 settings that were changed, and I'm going to go ahead and name this fix errors. And so now when I press OK, that's committed back to the main database. And so now we can go ahead and create that new run. We'll go ahead and drag the network over. We'll do the current. If we come under scenarios, we can select each one, but for this one, we'll just go ahead and run all. I'm just going to keep the rest of the information the same. And now I'll press run, and we want to run all 5. And so now if I come to the run control, I can see that I've got a couple that are going on. If I double click on that, it will take me to the job view, and I was able to run all of those scenarios very quickly. And now that is done, we can go ahead and drag on and look at some results. So if I find my model run, we'll go ahead and just drag our future max. So we can see we can click through, we could click on some items in order to look at the results, but I'm going to leverage some of these themes that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and add some pressure contours. I'm going to add some nodal pressures so that if I zoom in, I can see where the pressures are going on, some flow arrows, and why not also add the pipe diameters that came in. And so now if I make this take up, half the screen, what I can also do is come in, look at some graphical results. Maybe I want to zoom into this area, go to the node, and I want to look at the pressure for this node. And then I want to look at the flow for this pipe, press OK, put this off into the corner, kind of make those match up a little bit so they're a little bit even in size. And now I can drag through, see how it changes, see how my map is changing, as well as draw this red line if I want to look at the high or the low points. So these are the steps within the software of getting your information from InfoWater Pro or another EPANET based software into WS Pro and how you can run your model. Now that we've discussed the workflow, looked at it in action, I hope you can see these benefits. Really just being able to leverage models from EPANET engine software in WS Pro is a big one. And being able to run models from InfoWater Pro to WS Pro, just getting them in that format, making them run. And really it all comes down to more choices for your model once you have it in that EPANET XINP INP format. We hope you enjoyed this workflow, and we look forward to talking to you next time.